Welcome to everyone who's come. My name is Sue Ellen Soulier. I'm the Client Services Manager for Legal Super here in WA. And on behalf of Legal Super, the Australasian Legal Practice Managers Association, or ALPMA, and the Piddington Society, I'd like to warmly welcome all our presenters and participants to our first virtual careers fair, which is going to be focusing on career opportunities within small and mid-tier law firms. But before we get started, and in the spirit of reconciliation, Legal Super acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands of the country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, and in particular, those the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And now I'd like to introduce the Honourable John Chaney SC. The Honourable John Chaney SC is a former judge of the West Australian Supreme and District Courts and a former president of the State Administrative Tribunal. Mr. Chaney was admitted to practice in 1976. He became a partner of a major Perth commercial law firm in 1980 and served a term as managing partner. Mr. Chaney is the chair of the Piddington Society Committee, and I'd like to hand over to Mr. Chaney now. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. When I was told last week that this session was going to be held, I was really pleased because it was explained to me that it was designed to point out the opportunities that exist for graduates coming through university and for young lawyers in smaller and mid-sized law firms. And the reason I thought that was a good idea was because I have this sort of impression that the sort of goal that is discussed at university, the aspiration of at least some of the people there is to get into one of the big major international law firms and go through their graduate programs and so on. And whilst that's a perfectly reasonable aspiration to have, it has worried me for some time that people lose track of the opportunities that exist in other areas of the law to get a very satisfying career and a much more valuable contribution to, well, perhaps not more valuable, but certainly equally valuable contribution to the community in serving the administration of the law. When I started practice, as Sue Ellen sort of sadly reminded me, which was in 1976, which seems quite a long time ago, probably to some of you listening to this. But when I joined what was then one of the major firms in Perth. I think we were the sort of 5th or 6th biggest firm. We had 6 or 7 partners. And the sort of work that we did, and the firms which have now become Freehills and Mallisons, Lavin, all of those firms were around by other names back in those days. They were not much bigger. And what we all had in common was that there was a common service to across the whole range of legal services. So when I became a partner, in those days you became a partner in very rapid time, not like today. You know, I was going down to the magistrates' courts, I was drawing wills for people, I was incorporating companies for clients. You were just a sort of general practitioner. And that was pretty much the style of things, and people over time became more specialised, and I sort of went down the litigation path. But it was a very broad-ranging thing, and you had the opportunity to get on your feet as a litigator. You had the opportunity to have your own files very early in your career and to manage those and be responsible for them. I mean, you were supervised by a partner, but you had a lot of freedom because they were sort of consumer-type legal matters. That was really valuable, I thought, because you got a broad range of understanding of the interrelationship of different areas of law. And I've always thought it's a great grounding to have. Nowadays, with the big firms, they tend to be, they have limited range of work and they tend to work in large teams and graduates, after circulating through some training sessions, end up with in a particular area, and that's what they do. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not knocking it, but it doesn't give you the sort of broad exposure to the law that I think is available in smaller and mid-sized firms. In those sorts of firms, as I understand it, you do more of the work for real people and get the opportunity to meet people, work with people, understand their problems, and work across a whole range of areas without becoming too specialised. So I think it's a terrific opportunity, and certainly if I were advising any of my children, as well, they've all moved through that stage now, but if I were advising them in a career in law, I'd certainly be saying have a very good look at work in small and medium firms. So it's great. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I think it is well worth, this session is a really valuable thing to give people an introduction to what might be available to them across the range of work. I mean, we in Piddington have a terrific relationship with community law centres and work with graduates who are working with community law centres, and that's another area of really rewarding work that is available to lawyers. So good luck with it all, and I hope this afternoon goes well and is very informative for you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for that encouragement to everyone. So before we start, I thought I would just introduce a little bit to you, Legal Super. So we've got a few slides. There has been a change in super that I thought I would mention, which is quite pertinent to all of us here listening. So the information that I'm going to give is just general in nature and factual only. And it's introducing the idea of stapling. So from the 1st of November last year, every employee within Australia has been stapled to one super fund. Now, the fund that you had on the 1st of November is the fund that you're currently stapled to. And but that's not a permanent thing. So you can unstaple yourself, if you like to coin a phrase. We still have choice. So we still can use our standard choice form to unstaple us. So we're just going, I'll just get that slide up so you can have a look what that looks like. So this standard choice form is the form that you use to be able to choose which super fund you would like. Now, Legal Super is the industry fund for the legal profession. So we consider law students part of the legal community, and you're very welcome to consider Legal Super as your chosen fund. So we'll just have a quick flick onto the next slide, and this is what this form looks like. So that's the form that you need to fill out if you want to make a choice of an alternative fund. And the next slide that will come up is this is the reason why we need to take an interest in our super. So currently, all of us are having 10% of our salary put into super. In the 1st of July this year, that's going to 10.5%. And by 2024, 12% of our salary will be going into our super fund. So that's an incentive to take an interest in your super. And if you have any questions about super, my colleague Helen and I, here's our details, are here to support the West Australian legal community with any questions they have about their super. So that's the little bit of information, a super tip for everyone. And now I'd like to hand over to Emma Elliott. She's the Chief Executive Officer of ALPMA, and she's going to introduce the next session. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. So as you just mentioned, I am the CEO of the Australasian Legal Practice Management Association, and we're a not-for-profit membership association that spans across Australia and New Zealand. And the purpose of our association is to provide learning and development resources, amongst other things, to law firm management. So anybody that has a leadership or a management position within a law firm are our members. We have approximately 1,300 members across the region, which represents about 600 law firms. And what's interesting about those law firms is notwithstanding the fact that we do have some of the top tier firms as members, but the majority of our members are the smaller law firms with less than 75 employees. And I guess the reason why this session came about is because I've worked for ALPMA for a number of years, but also worked in the legal industry for a number of years. And as part of that role, I sat in firms of that size. And I was the hiring manager or the HR manager for those law firms. So I do feel for the students trying to find opportunities within law firms. And I was always of the opinion that there was more opportunities within smaller law firms than the students actually knew about. And it was really because the top tier firms were the ones with the resources and the capacity to get down to those face-to-face career fairs, whereas our ALPMA members don't have that luxury all the time. So I guess that's what we're here today, to try and introduce some of the smaller law firms to the students and sort of just open your eyes to say that there are opportunities outside of those top tiers and also the terrace firms. So today's session is going to be quite full. It has a couple of purposes. So as I said, we want to showcase our member firms and we want to let the students know about those opportunities and perhaps the hiring processes that those firms go through. And also we just want to introduce the firm so that the students can hear direct from some of our members. So today, the section that I'm going to run is going to be twofold. I'm going to introduce some partners of the law firms that we have invited along here to tell us a bit about their journey and how they got to where they are. And a little bit about their firms, and then I'm going to introduce the hiring managers, and we're going to talk through some tips and tricks for students, what to do, what not to do, and also how those firms in particular go through their hiring processes. So I'm not going to introduce all the partners one by one or give an extensive introduction. I'm going to allow them to do that. So hopefully, I think I've seen Gus Erdy is online, and Gus is the managing partner of Erdy Legal. So Gus, could I invite you to introduce yourself and Erdy Legal to us, please?
Well, thank you so much, Emma. Firstly, I've got to say I'm delighted to see John as chair today, because at least there's one other person older than me listening and watching. So thank you for being here, John. You're a good man. Okay, John was qualified in 1976 and I was qualified in 1977. So I knew John from university. He was much more studious than me. But anyway, we finally got there, John. I've been given a script here, Emma, to follow through. Now, I know I've only got 5 minutes really to summarise 45 years worth of experience. So let me say to the young practitioners who are listening, law was not my first choice. And in fact, it was medicine that I wanted to do, but until I was told that I wasn't smart enough to go into medicine, so I had to choose another career. And law was the only one that I could think of that suited. But anyway, another story. Look, I started off in 1977 as an article clerk at Jones Mazza & Co, which John will no doubt remember. He specialised in criminal law and civil litigation. I became a partner there within about a year or so, and I stayed there a couple of years. And then I set up my own business called Chalmers & Erdy in the city. That was in 1980. I set up with Linton Chalmers. And that firm was a small firm, only 2 of us with 1 employee. And we grew that to 5 partners and 14 employees in 1986 when I left, and I set up Erdy Legal. And I set that up in Oxford Street in Leederville. And that was a very gutsy move at that stage because it was very countercultural, because Leederville was not the hub and the importance of what it is today. Nevertheless, Erdy Legal prospered. I started off with 1 girl and myself, and that has now grown. We have 19 lawyers and 45 staff. So in terms of the areas of work, we have essentially 4 areas. We have litigation, and that contains really mostly historical sexual abuse claims, where we act for churches and institutions, and there's a little bit of commercial litigation involved. The largest area in the practice by far is property, and we're basically known as a property law firm. My son Adrian is a lawyer who heads up that division, and that's a very active division in the firm. The third division is commercial law, and that's part of the area that John Kelly, who's working for me as a junior lawyer, who's watching today, he's part of that team. And that is a team that I head up. And then we have the fourth division, which is estate planning. I agree with John that the greatest experience that I can imagine anyone to have is to be involved in a small to medium-sized firm, because you really have to do everything. You get to see everything and touch and feel a lot of the experiences. So being a lawyer, of course, is not just about the legal subject matter. It's also about communication skills. It's the soft skills, understanding how to make your clients feel comfortable. And I know that, in some of the big firms, they have programs steered towards that. But I think it's fair to say that small to medium firms provide probably a more personalised service or experience to various clients. In terms of what we do here, in terms of our work types, clients typically are in the SME space. Apart from litigation, we specialise more in the SME space. So that is high net worth individuals. I hate the use of that term, but everyone uses it. Executives and people with complex structures. So we advise large property groups. We don't act for tenants so much. We act for landlords in the property space, people who are entering into joint ventures. So it's that sort of high level work. And in the estate planning, we deal with quite large groups, individuals with complex structures and corporations associated with it. So in all, what we try to do with our lawyers, whilst we have divisions, we have a very collegiate approach here. And as John and Lisa, our general manager who's watching, will know, we have a policy that every person in this office must say good morning and good night to each other. There's no exception. So we have 2 floors to our building in Leederville, and every person must communicate with each person every day. Even if it's virtually, you've got to communicate and say good morning. So we try to maintain that personal connection amongst all of our staff. Emma, I think I've used up 5 minutes. I could go on, but I think I've used my time. Would that be right?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, but that was absolutely spot on. Thanks so much, Gus. And that's so lovely to hear that that personal touch, because culture is 100%, the king. Okay, well, next I would like to invite Kate Turtley-Chappell. I believe she's online. Kate's a partner at AP Legal. Kate, are you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Hello.
Hi. Yes, so I am the director of AP Legal. I finished uni in, I think, 2007, and I went into native title law, which was a really great field. And I did articles with Central Desert Native Title Services. And then I got admitted in, it actually took me a while because we were travelling so much in 2010, I think. And I went to Legal Aid. And I was with Legal Aid for 7 years. And then I went to the Aboriginal Legal Service, which I was there for 4.5. And then I'd been in the regions and decided to try private practice, and I joined AP Legal, came to Perth, and then Alana Padmanabhan, who was the director at that time, got appointed as a Children's Court Magistrate. So I was only with her for about 4 months. She left and I took over the firm. So it was not expected at all, and it's been an incredible whirlwind. But it's great, and there's lots of very small criminal firms around. It's a unique area. It's not for everyone, that's for sure. But once you're in it, I think you love it. I have 5 lawyers, a few paralegals. We always have students. We do a lot of briefing. We brief interstate counsel. And so we always are looking for students to help out on big cases. So a big importation matter, a murder that's complex, or another matter that requires a lot of hands on deck at the time. And I'd encourage people to try. The students that I get in my practice and that I've seen help other practices, I think you need to commit to at least 2 months, because a 2-week work experience doesn't tend to offer much to the firm, and you learn and gain skills as well. And that's a good amount of time. And from my experience, it's the sort of amount of time that you can get involved in a case. So yeah, I'm located in Perth, and we do lots of regional work. I'm regionally based. I was regionally based, and I'm a country girl, so I love that. I love going back, and I love Headlands and Geraldton. They're probably 2 of my favourites. And we predominantly do criminal law. We have the odd practice in VRO proceedings, a few very minor family matters that we've had to get involved in. But yeah, I think criminal law is not for everyone, and the best way to check is to go and engage, and as a student to get involved, send letters. Certainly I'm always willing to accept students, but I think a lot of criminal firms are, especially the smaller ones. We often regularly need more hands, so there's always work that needs to be done. So yeah, that's probably my typical kind of scenario, and I'm not sure if I'll answer questions later, obviously, but I think that's probably me for now.
Lovely. Thanks so much for that, Kate. And I've jotted down a couple of questions to ask you in the next section. So that sounds really good. Okay, so next we have Daniel Sampson, who's a partner at Cultural Miller, joining us today. So thanks, Daniel. If I can invite you to tell us a bit about yourself and the firm.
Hi, Emma. Nice to meet you.
You too.
So, yeah, I'm an associate director here at Cultural Miller Lawyers. I was admitted, had to think about it, in 2010, so pretty more recently than some other people. But look, I started off at uni going, I worked in property and conveyancing in a previous life and thought I'd like to do some law. Went to university and said, I really don't want to do family law. Got offered a job in family law in my second year and said, oh, look, I'll see how long I stick with this. And yeah, nearly 15 years later, here I am. So just a previous speaker was saying you have to have a go at something. You might not know exactly what you like, but you might have to stick to it for a little bit to see whether you like it. I don't know about 13 years, but long enough. But yeah, that was my start really in family law. I started a firm called Sham Family Lawyers back then. We eventually merged with Marks and Sands and became Cultural Miller Lawyers. That was in 2011. And our practice, we have a family law practice, obviously. We also have a property law practice, a wills and estates practice, conveyancing, and some general commercial work as well. So we're pretty broad, and one of the benefits of working in a firm that's small but broad is you get a lot of exposure to different things. So I really enjoy that aspect of working in a smaller firm. In terms of our firm size, we have 14 solicitors on deck in the firm with about 8 support staff, and that floats depending on our workload, but that's generally where we're at, generally around 25 staff, which is a reasonable level. I think they used to call that a boutique firm. I don't know if that's gone out of fashion, but that's where we're at as a practice. So that's a bit of an overview of the firm. We in Perth, we've also got some sister firms in Adelaide and Melbourne. So even though we're small, we do have a national footprint. We do have an association with the Hunt Group. So we actually do have some exposure in China and New Zealand and the Eastern Seaboard with respect to cross referrals and really just information sharing as well. So that's a good aspect, even though we're a small firm. So it's important to keep that in mind. And just looking through my notes, in terms of my practice, so as I said, it's family law. Family law can be a pretty broad base. We do property settlements after separation, dealing with child care matters, care and welfare matters, spousal maintenance, so alimony, as Americans call it, you might see on television. Also child support, things like that. Also, as I say, the care and protection element. Sometimes we find ourselves in the children's court dealing with matters down there. And my practice also includes doing some family violence and restraining order work. So under that pretty broad practice umbrella, we also get exposed to sort of corporate life as well. As lots of couples splitting up have, companies, and they can be quite large or small. We can have, serious trust structures and things like that. So as I say, it can be a very varied practice, and you're doing a lot more than just, you might tend to think you're just doing mum and dad separations, but you're looking into it a bit more deeply than that. You're also doing a lot of advocacy. I mean, we find ourselves as family lawyers, you're not briefing matters unless they're very, serious. You find yourself on your feet in court quite a lot. So there's a good exposure doing some advocacy there, and it's run at quite a high level in the family court as well in Western Australia. So it's interesting to keep that in mind too. My typical clients, as I said, I've given, we deal with everybody from mums and dads to that dreaded term high net wealth individuals, but we deal with basic matters. We can be writing a letter for one client. We can be doing a complex 2-year trial on another matter. So it really is very varied. I think that about covers the field with my 5 minutes.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Daniel. Okay, next we've got Alice Jordan from Kennedy Vincurlo Lawyers. Alice, over to you.
Hi, yes. So I'm not a partner, obviously don't have as much experience as everyone else here. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, I'm Alice. I am a law graduate at Kennedy Vincurlo, a recent one. So I graduated last year from Murdoch University, and I'm currently completing my practical legal training. So I first got into the business in my first semester of university. I got offered a job at a boutique law firm and started working there as an admin assistant, and then eventually worked my way up to law clerking and working with the litigation and commercial partners there. And then when I was there, I met one of the partners, Carla Vincurlo, and then she went off and worked somewhere else and then opened her own firm up, and she invited me to come over and work here. So we opened up last year, March last year, with Carla Vincurlo and her business partner, Tim Kennedy. They went to uni together and reconnected recently. We're in West Perth. There's about 5 of us. So there's Tim, who does commercial litigation and property and estates, and then Carla does employment relations. And there's another lawyer, Josh, and then 2 law graduates. So we're quite an intimate little law firm, which is nice. We're located in West Perth. So our employment and workplace relations practice advises employers of all sizes across all industries in relation to the HR, employment, safety and industrial relation issues, and we represent them in some litigious matters. And then the litigation and dispute resolution practices acts for businesses, individuals and local governments in all courts and tribunals in relation to their commercial disputes and litigations. Yeah, that's all.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, Alice. And actually, your story and the way that you've got into the law is actually really interesting, and probably will be discussed a little bit further in the next section. And then I'm sure the students would love to hear from you in the third section where we go to the breakout rooms. So the next part of today's session, we're going to hear from some of the hiring managers, and I know, Alice, you're going to participate in this for us, and also Kate, who's just introduced herself, will also participate. But we've also got 2 other people joining us as well. So we've actually got Marcus East Hope on the line from Coleshaw Miller, and we've also got Lisa McCarthy from Erdy Legal joining us today. So these are the people that can give us some information on the hiring processes, the opportunities at the law firms, and how what they look for in resumes, what they look for in cover letters, and the do's and don'ts when applying for jobs at these law firms. So I might just start and ask Lisa to jump on the line or join us. But Lisa, I understand that your law firm doesn't typically follow the normal clerkship process. And you have a different way of getting students into your law firm. Lisa, did you want to tell us a little bit about that? Oh, Lisa, we can't hear you. Can you unmute? There we go.
Okay, I think I'm with you now.
Yeah,
I'm Lisa.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Emma. I'm Lisa. I'm the General Manager at Erdy Legal, and Gus has already introduced our firm and the areas that we work in. And I manage the recruitment and placement of both professional and support staff. And the partners and the lawyers have a lot of input and participation in the recruitment process as well. But firstly, congratulations to all the students who are listening today for your efforts and achievements in studying law, and all the best for your up and coming exams. And you've no doubt invested heavily in your learning and your career planning, and you may have your goals set on achieving a law clerk or a graduate position at one of the big firms. And as Gus and John and Kate have explained, there's lots of opportunities at the smaller and the boutique firms. And I wonder whether you might have considered an alternate to a traditional clerk and graduate placement. And what we do is we don't follow the traditional sort of pathways or the formalised process. So most of our law clerks or graduates are already come in through opportunities. They might express an interest in working at our firm, or they might apply for positions as research clerks or in support positions such as legal assistants or even reception positions. We've had some students come through and they're on reception, and then they work as legal assistants in some of our teams, and then they go on to study law and graduate, and we support them through that process. So we're really flexible, and we encourage students working with us to undertake vacation work at other firms so that they have that broader exposure, and we explore their career aspirations with them, and we're very accommodating at exam time. Some of them stay with us because that aligns to their goals, and some of them we support in moving on to the bigger firms because they're more suitable and better fit to working in different practice areas. So our point of difference, Gus might have mentioned, is that we build strong interpersonal relationships, both with our staff within our culture. He mentioned that we say good morning, goodbye to everyone each day. And the lawyers who work with us and the graduates get to work directly with our client base. So we're looking for law graduates and law clerks who are very self-managing, that they have good initiative and good interpersonal skills, and cultural fit is really important to us. So we're looking for people that can read the play, juggle multiple priorities, and who can be responsive at matter level and understand what the lawyer they're working with requires. We're a very transactional practice, so it's very flat compared to the big teams that you may find at the bigger firms. So it's really important that a graduate or law clerk working in our firm can understand where to add value and can take initiative to do that. I've probably talked for long enough, so I'll hand back to Emma.
Thanks, Lisa. And just at any one time, how many graduates or students would you have sort of in your firm going through this?
We've currently got a couple of law graduates. We have a couple of restricted practitioners as well. So another option is that we've had restricted practitioners that as graduates they've gone into in-house positions, and then they've come across to us as part of the restricted practitioner placements. But the law graduates that we've had working with us have worked with us as students. So in that way, they get to have a real intimate experience with our firm, and we get to know a bit about them and how we might be able to align our goals and that whole cultural fit.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, that sounds
Emma,
great.
just on that point, just to follow through, we've got 2 law students. One is working at reception and one's working as a legal administration assistant as well.
Yeah, okay.
Both are part-time.
Yeah. And Gus, did they, obviously they join, did they join your firm whilst at uni, or join your firm and then decide to study law?
In one case, the receptionist was already studying at university.
Yeah.
In the other case, she was with us for about a year or so as a legal assistant, and then decided that law was her career path. So she's now in first year at Murdoch.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's great to hear. Thank you. Kate, I just want to pick up on something you mentioned earlier. You said you've obviously got a lot of opportunities and you're always interested in getting students into the law firm and you're never short of work. How many opportunities would you have? Is it sort of cyclical? I imagine it sort of comes and goes with the cases that you pick up. But I'm also interested in how you advertise for those positions. How do students find out about it?
So the last big matter that my firm had, where we actually got 6 students, and one of the lawyers that we had hired to work on the matter was from Eastern States, knew one of the universities, had a really good relationship with them, and then we got it through the lecturer, the criminal law lecturer. So that was how we got 3 people, 2 of whom are still working here. And one went on to be an associate for a current Supreme Court judge. So yeah, through people that we know. I have had the odd person that has just sent in their CV, shown interest. That's also great. I think we're quite flexible in terms of how it works. There's really just what skills that you can bring. And what I would say, number one, is if you have any IT skills, my understanding and my appreciation of IT is terrible. And as such, I just love anyone who's got any idea about even how to use Excel. Sometimes you go, oh, fabulous. Or if you've got an accounting background, don't be shy in telling us the other kind of skills that you have, because often that's what we might be looking for. Big fraud case, I'm terrible at maths. It might be that your skill is actually used in another way. So students themselves have come in many varying different ways. I agree with Lisa in terms of what she was saying about that might work for you in another capacity. So the last 2 receptionists that we've had have both been studying. One is now doing her PLT and she's here as a paralegal 2 days a week. The other one got admitted mid last year and is working as a restricted practitioner here. So yeah, I think that's the great thing about when you work for smaller firms, is that there's great flexibility. And if you're interested and you love the work, I think it shows. And then as a boss, I want to keep you. I want to keep you on and I want to make that work. So yeah, I think that would be my ultimate takeaway, is that find what you're interested in. And then I think that will actually flow to the next step. I'm always happy to give it a go and see if this is what you like. Crime, which is often not, but it might be. It can be like the TV shows. Unlike a lot of the other areas of law, crime is often what you do see on the TV. It can be anyway.
Brilliant. And I think you're spot on there in terms of giving things a go. And a lot of the time, the clerkships or the different opportunities that the law firms offer for students is exactly that. It's the taster to try and put your toe in the water to see what area of law you're interested in. And a lot of the times with the market and how it's so competitive, students are jumping just to take a graduate position, and you can't knock back a graduate position or, you know, I used to say that to the students that I knew, if they got an offer at a law firm in a practice area that they weren't too sure about, that you say yes, and then you worry about later how you change your practice area if it's not the right one for you.
And I think that's why it's so well.
No, please, Kate, jump in.
I was just going to say, I think that's why it's so great to start that when you're a student, because you can get involved in these different firms in different ways at different levels, and kind of assess yourself where you fit. I had one student come and she was so meticulous and so thorough, and she loved criminal law, and she loved you know, how dramatic it was, if I could say that. Ultimately, it was really clear to me that this was never going to be the field that was going to suit her. So she found out that she, you know, loved it, but it wasn't for her, whilst also just coming and doing work on a particular matter, only for a few months. So yeah, I really think I'm an advocate for trying and involving yourself at whatever level you can in a firm, particularly, like has already been said, smaller firms where you don't get lost, you don't get put in a room and forgotten about. That's it. You become part of a team, and you can appreciate if it's for you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, I'm going to jump across to you at Cultural Miller. Perhaps you can let us know how your about the opportunities at your law firms, whether you do clerkships or paid, casual, part-time employment, and graduate opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. We offer, I suppose, a number of different opportunities depending on what people are looking for, but we've got people employed as you know, essentially graduate law clerks doing different roles within the firm. We also have, you know, work experience opportunities for anyone that's really looking just to come and have a try at some different practice areas. So I guess there's a number of different opportunities that are available to people, but when it comes to actually applying for a position or even just coming to do some work experience, what I'm at least looking for is I want to know a bit about you as a person. The law stuff is pretty much a given. You're all bright individuals and you've managed to get through your law degrees and whatnot. So the important thing to us is really the person, because we are a smaller firm and you're going to have to fit within the culture of our organisation. So getting to know you a little bit is really valuable in terms of actually ultimately ending up with a job as a restricted practitioner, because we can glean a lot more from spending time with you and working with you on matters than what we'll get off a bit of paper and reading your resume. So I can't emphasize enough the benefits of actually getting out there and doing some work experience or getting a clerkship role with a firm. Might be a bit repetitious, but what Kate mentioned before is really true, in that just try. There's so many different practice areas you can have a go at, and until you've actually worked it, you don't really know what the day-to-day grind involves. So at Cultural Miller, I guess we have got a graduate clerk in at the moment that's doing some work on a paid regular basis, 1 or 2 days a week, fit in with their uni schedule. And they just get to taste a few different things, you know, whether it's just, you know, drafting simple wills and enduring powers of attorney in the wills and estates team, doing some research or that sort of thing on a disputed estate matter. They might come and work with me in property for a while and we'll just do some basic conveyancing work. It was always a great sort of starting point for a lot of people, was just doing that outside clerking role. It's not so much of relevance these days with PEXA and whatnot, but it still happens. It's still plenty of paper settlements, and you get out and you get to meet people. And certainly that's how a few of the lawyers in our office have actually started off. And we've ended up employing them in you know, legal roles, and they're still with us. So yeah, getting on to the bit about, I guess, you as a person, you've got to fit within the team culture. So what I look for in your resume is I want to know a little bit about you outside of your results, where you went to school, what uni you went to, what grades you got. Look, that's all good, but I'm trying to find out a little bit about you as an individual. I want a team player. I want someone that has got some experience, maybe playing sport, maybe working in a band, or doing drama, or some outside interest where you can show that you work well with others. So that's something that I always look for. Certainly, if you've done experience with community legal centres or anything like that, and you've got some experience, great, tell us all about it. Or otherwise, if you've got some other experience outside of the law, but you think that that's relevant to whether it's commercial matters or, anything like that, that's valuable for us to know. And we, when you're reading 20 or 30 resumes, it's got to jump out at you. I don't want to read pages and pages and pages of information. I really want to try and get to the nub of the matter pretty quickly and try and make an assessment of 1 or 2 pages of information, whether I think you're the right fit for the team. So look, simple, old fashioned. If you send me a resume, please give me a call. I'm happy to have a chat to you and spend 5 minutes just trying to get to know you a little bit, because at the end of the day, you'll get employed as a lawyer, but you're employed as a person first and foremost, and that's probably the most important factor that I have when I'm looking to hire people.
That's really good advice, actually, Marcus. I think that the team sports and those other extracurricular activities, shouldn't go unnoticed. I know when I was the business manager or hiring manager at Steiner Price Paganin, they're a corporate commercial law firm. I love to see students that during university went and set up their own small business. Whether it was, I remember one year there was somebody that they hired out like a wooden stage for their friends' parties, and I loved it because it showed to me that their mind was kind of entrepreneurial, and that's what I was looking for. So you never know what it is that the firms are after. And it's great too. I had a question here to ask everybody whether the student should actually just pick up the phone and give the law firm a call and find out. And I think that's a really great tip, because if you find out what they're looking for, that will go a really long way. Alice, have you got some comments to make here about Kennedy Vincerlo and your hiring practices?
I don't have many. How was I hired? Didn't have too much of a conventional hiring process. I actually worked in high school at a hairdresser's, and one of the clients who came in who I'd do her hair was a manager of a law firm, a boutique law firm. Yeah. And I kind of just went in for the queue every time she came in. I was just on her. I was like, I'll do her hair. I've got her. I'll talk to her. Talked her ear off, just hoping I would get anything. I was offering to work the Christmas parties. I was like, just get me in there. I want to talk to some people. And then eventually it worked. In my first semester, she called me up and said, hey, we've got this admin job. It's not law related too much, but do you want it? And yeah, I just accepted it. So, and then even when I got in there, I was just I knew I wasn't going to be the smartest. So I knew I had to bring something else. And I brought my personality and my work ethic. I would just kind of force myself into situations. I would go check on the calendar, see what was going on. There was court or there was a meeting, and I would just go and knock on the door and be like, hey, I see this is happening. Can I come in? I'll sit at the back. You won't even see me. You won't hear me. I'll take notes, do whatever. And that's how it started. That's how I got here. That's how I got to know Carla. I would just go into her office and force work out of her. And then she liked it. And here I am now. So yeah, I guess I don't know if I have advice. I'm still learning very much myself, but just don't be afraid to ask to do the work, because they're not going to offer sometimes, or they will, but it's busy. And sometimes they forget to offer work to you. So you just kind of have to force yourself in there, if that's advice. Yeah,
no, look, I think that's brilliant. And I'll open it up to Lisa and Marcus and Kate too. And I'm going to circle back to the do's and don'ts in cover letters and resumes quickly because I'm conscious of time. But once the student does get their foot in the law firm, picking up on what Alice is saying, does anybody else want to make a comment as to what it is that you're looking for that makes you then want to hire the clerk that comes in or hire that part-time person? What is it?
Yeah, look, I'll jump in there, Emma, if I can, just quickly.
Yeah.
Look, initiative certainly is a great one. As Alice said, we're all busy. We've all got lots of work to do. And sometimes you just don't find the time, or you forget to delegate a task to someone and say, look, can you help us out with that? So if anyone, probably the best tip is, I would say, is look, if you ever find yourself without something to do, go and ask someone and just simply say, look, what can I do to help? Because there's always something you can do, and initiative is a great driver, I think, to show people what it is that, you know, who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah, lovely. Lisa, did you have something to jump in and say?
Yeah, it just sounds like ditto, but absolutely, in small firms you have an opportunity there where you can get to know each of the lawyers, and taking that interest in different practice areas and being curious and initiative. And I think Alice has done a really good job with that, and they're the sort of people we're looking for. We're looking for people that want to firstly help us out by getting to know us and letting us know what are the special qualities that you've got that will align to our firm and our practices, but also looking for where you can add value, looking for opportunities. And our lawyers actually want assistance. There's a little bit of a squeeze between the lawyers actually being front of face with clients and trying to get the work out the door with a transactional practice. They're after all the help that they can get. So working out quickly how you can best help them and learn at the time, and taking that initiative, if you have a matter, to run through them with the possible options, and then go away and research and come back, and avoiding going down rabbit holes, and just that communication all the time, so that when you do progress something, you're putting something on the table that's of value to them and to the clients.
Yeah, brilliant. And Kate, anything you have to add on that?
Look, I think that's exactly it, is initiative. I have one story of a student who, there were 6 of us standing around, it was quite late one evening doing work, and the phone rang, and just almost out of reaction, no one got up to answer it, because of course there wasn't any staff left in the building, but the student got up, answered it, and just really, it was a prisoner who'd called after hours, and just really handled it beautifully. And I thought, got to hire this girl. That's just, you've just shown me in a nutshell all of the things that I needed to know about you. You're here late, you've had initiative, and then you've thought outside the square using common sense, because I think often when we have been educated and we've learnt through books about all of these really difficult concepts, we kind of sometimes lose our common sense. And I think that's amazing if you can just make sure that you tap back into that when you start going in for jobs.
Yeah, lovely, awesome. Look, I know we've only got about 6 minutes left in this section, and I do want to cover off on cover letters and resumes. I have, as everybody here probably has, you've read 100 or maybe 1,000 resumes in your time. What I'm in particular looking for, what are the do's and the don'ts? What don't you want to see in a cover letter and a resume? What do you want to see in a cover letter and resume? And I know, Marcus, you've touched on this a little bit, but is there any don'ts that you don't want to see?
I'm happy to give a quick don't.
Oh yeah, go, yeah, please.
This happened quite recently. I think it's about, sometimes we have cover letters that are generic, and that is useful, but to know your target. And it was someone who noted that, where their aim was to go with their career, and it certainly wasn't to work for a criminal firm. And I thought, I'm not sure why you're applying for this.
Yeah, that's so true. And a mail merge. If you use a mail merge, you must double check that the address of the letter and the firm name within the body of the text of that cover letter actually match, because that will get you, and I hate to say it, we definitely used a red pen and we went through and we marked up some of these CVs, and that gets you across. So do take your time and make sure that you line that up for the students listening. Marcus, did you want to jump in on any don'ts?
Oh, yeah, look, I just, I don't like covering letters that go beyond a page. It's too much information. Just
Yep.
tell me a little bit about yourself and why you think you'd be a good fit for the role. And here's my resume. Look, that's really what I want to know. And then in terms of resumes, again, keep it simple. You know, attach your grades if you want to or whatever. But I know you've graduated. I know you understand the law. What I'm really trying to tease out of your resume is a little bit about you as an individual, more so than where you went to school or you know, what high school you went to or anything like that. So from my point of view, yeah, look, resumes are great if they can just concisely state what interests you've got in, you know, whatever role it is that you're applying for. Why is this a good role for you, and why are you a good fit for that role for the firm as well? So that's probably less of the mail merge and a little bit more time spent on delving into the specifics of the job that you're applying for.
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular, one tip I have is not to regurgitate the law firm's website in that cover letter. We actually know what's on the website, so don't cut and paste it and pop it in your covering letter. Lisa, did you have any do's or don'ts from your firm?
I'll probably echo what Kate and Marcus have said. But I'll probably be looking at something a little bit beyond a page, maybe a page and a half. If I look at the applicants that we've taken on, quite articulate and maybe emotionally intelligent in that they've researched what the firm needs and then looked at the qualities and experiences that they've undertaken. And then we're kind of time poor. So if they've been able to create a cover letter that holds our hand and tells us their story through that process. And I think some of the don'ts is I don't kind of like photos. I do research and look on the internet, but I kind of think it looks a bit not as professional putting your photo on a CV, and be articulate, like how you write and the words you use. You are applying to become a lawyer, and lawyers are really known for their wordsmithing. So having a look at how articulate you are and looking for attention to detail, because I know not so much me, but the lawyers on our teams are very quick to identify any spelling or grammatical errors. So using something like Grammarly, if I can mention a brand name, but there's free software out there that you can check your grammar and learn from. You probably use it if you're a student. So just taking that care and researching the role and telling us the story. We don't have all the information. We want to make a good decision. So helping us help you is a really good thing.
Excellent. And we'll just ask everybody as well, before we wrap up, like, what is your decision-making process? Do you have, Lisa, is it yourself and Gus, do you look at it, or does Adrian look at it? How is the...
It depends on, yeah, depending on the team that we're, that the role is applying for. If it's coming in a support position, we always include the person on the team. So team fit is really important, not just lawyers, but support staff as well. So they'll often attend the interview. We're very consultative with our team. So if the team don't feel the fit, then we don't hire that person, because it's really important if they're going to work together. And being a small boutique firm, we've got 45 people, but Gus is always involved. He'll always come in and meet with the person because it's really important. He's the founder of our culture, and you know he needs to be comfortable that that person's a good choice. I've worked here for 18 years. I've got a good feel for the culture as well, but very much at team level and whether the team can work with the person.
Yeah, brilliant. And Marcus, is that the same for you at Culture Miller? Sorry, shortened your name.
Oh, there we are. Sorry, just trying to find the unmute button. Yeah, look, pretty much we would do an initial review of all the applications that come in, and we'll go through those between myself and whoever's heading up the relevant practice area, and we'll work through that and I guess identify 3 or 4 of the ones that we think are the best applicants. And then typically we'd ask you to come in and meet with both myself and whoever it is, or whichever section that they were applying to work with, whether it's family law or property or wills and estates. And yeah, that's basically what we go off is you know, whether or not, yeah, ultimately we're happy as a firm with the individual, but most importantly the person that they're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis. That's probably the most crucial element. Yeah,
Brilliant. And just finally, Kate and Alice, did you have anything else to comment on there?
The only thing I think I'd sort of emphasise is I think it was Lisa said before about your social media, your presence. You'd be surprised how many times that might be, your name might be looked up in another way. So I guess that's just a good idea, just to have another review of that in case there's something there that you don't want necessarily an image or something coming across in a certain way. I think that's quite natural these days for people to do it. And in the work that we do, you know, discretion and confidentiality, particularly as students, is super key. And I think that that's something that I'd pay attention to. But I think our process here is very much, there's 2 of us that look at these sorts of matters. We identify people and then we'll get people in and for short periods of time, and then they can be extended if it's working or if it's a project that you might work on well. But we don't have a big HR team or anything like that.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks so much to everybody for your comments on that section. Hopefully that's been really useful for the law students. My final tip for the students is when you turn up to go to the interview, be nice to the receptionist. They have a lot of well, not so much influence, but they will be asked. Some firms will ask the receptionist how that person treated them. So just make sure that you're super friendly to everyone when you go in there. So I'm going to hand over to Conrad now. I'll thank all the guests for those 2 sections. Conrad, over to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Emma, and thanks everyone for all of that. There was one thing going through my mind in all of this, and Kate, I am going to pull on you very shortly, but like one thing, last year I was sitting on an interview panel for a firm, and there was someone that we interviewed, and we did not talk about the job at all because they had something on their CV that was just so thoroughly interesting that they'd spent basically half their life living in the middle of nowhere in you know, in the far north of the state, and it was just like, tell us more, like what did you learn about that? And that's how we spent the interview, and we ended up hiring that person. I've definitely got something on my CV that like is a bit of a conversation starter. I've spent a bit of time in Los Angeles, and when people ask me about that, they say, what did you learn over there? Well, I danced with Paula Abdul. And so like, not because I'm a good dancer, just because various circumstances occurred, that's what ended up happening. Kate, I don't know if you've got anything at all interesting on your CV, but I feel like you just might.
I love that you think that. No, I think I automatically tell people just that I'm a country girl because I feel like that forgives me for everything I'm about to say. I think that's my go-to. Yeah, I'm a country girl. And, you know, I've actually lived in the city a lot longer than I ever have the country now, but that's my go-to.
I love that. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start going into breakout rooms on different things. And so so each of different people is kind of going into stuff. So we've got obviously Kate's doing criminal law. The early people are going to talk about different civil sort of things. Alice is going to talk a bit about litigation-y sort of stuff, and then the cultural Miller people are going to talk about family law. I'm going to, and so the best part about this is that partly just having a chat with those people, but we've also got students that Piddington works with who are going to kind of lead these sort of discussions and have a bit of a chat. So we'll be going to just before, I've opened it all now, so you can kind of you should be able to see them all and kind of just jump straight in.